All right, we are live, guys. This is the Difference Makers podcast. My name is Justin Tamani. I will be your host today. Before we get started, just want to remind you, give us a like, subscribe to the podcast. We're on all major platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Drop us a subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you want to see from the podcast going forward. Today we have with us Greg Hammond. Now, Greg is on the Concept2 marketing team. He has been with the company for over 25 years now, which is crazy impressive. And he's seen so much. But Concept2, you think, okay, where have I heard that before? That is all the ergs that you see in your CrossFit box every day. So the rowers, ski ergs, the bike erg. So, Greg, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we talked briefly before we started here, and you said you've been with the company for 26 years.
Yeah, started initially, I got my degrees in health science, and I had my own business in Maine for a while doing corporate fitness. Happened to be buying a lot of rowing machines that were from Vermont, where I'm from, and just said if I ever wasn't going to do what I was doing, I would like to go work for that company, and then move back to Vermont. Happened to know somebody who worked here, and been here ever since. So I've done almost every job imaginable here, from production to marketing to you name it. So
Okay. So you're specifically in the marketing department right now.
Yep. Yeah, right now.
And you said you deal with CrossFit and action sports.
Yeah, everyone kind of has like their little markets that they do. I tend to go towards the markets of the sports that I've either done or enjoy, so that there's some relatability to the athletes. There's nothing worse than, someone saying, working with a group that doesn't actually know the group well or do the sports themselves. And so pretty much be like, before CrossFit, I did sports like motocross and rugby and just a bunch of sports that I enjoyed. And I said, I want to go work with those markets. So I went for those first. And then, I was doing jujitsu at the time. So we worked with a lot of the MMA athletes. So we just called it action sports to be overarching. And then through those groups is when CrossFit came out. And then I started CrossFitting after seeing my first level one, not even knowing what CrossFit was. And then I've been doing that ever since.
And so when you say you saw your first level one, what year was that? So that would have been back.
So the way it worked out is that Greg and Dave were working with the Navy out of San Diego, out of Coronado, and they needed somebody that was prior service to just teach the rowing portion of it, to get onto the base, to the section of the base that we were going to work on. So they asked here, is there anybody that would go out there and teach rowing? And I was like, I'm a big fan of the military, and said, oh, I'll go in a heartbeat. And went out there not even really knowing what CrossFit was, other than looking at the website before I left, in there. Didn't know anything about Greg, didn't know anything about Dave, didn't know, because at that point, I don't even know Greg was in Santa Cruz, but it was still really new. And it was probably 2007.
Okay.
I would think. It's right around there. It was before the games were even thought of. And so, maybe late 2006, 2007, something like that. And I was so impressed. I went out there with my degree in health science, and I saw this guy basically in 2 days say everything that I learned in health, but explained it better than my college professors, and just seemed more legitimate. And then when I came home from that trip, I was one of those CrossFit forum nerds asking if anybody else in Vermont was doing it. Nobody was. We had 0 affiliates in Vermont until 2010. So I changed our workout room here at Concept2, went from being all ergs to I would bring in a pull-up bar, I'd bring up my Olympic bar, and then I was the crazy guy at work, like, what's Greg doing in there? And nobody knew, us doing. So that story.
And when you said the CrossFit Forum, I don't even think, my guess is most people here don't even know what that is, or most people listening don't know what that is. But the old CrossFit.com was a workout of the day. So every day they would put up one workout. And then there was like a forum where everybody would post their scores and, chat and communicate through there, correct?
Yeah, it was great because, and I wish that they would either re-release it. Like, I went maybe about 2 months ago, I tried to find some old forum post, because I mean, it was really the OG. It was the base of the pyramid folks at CrossFit. Like Greg would answer his own questions in there, stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I missed that. I want to try to get back there, and I couldn't find it. But like, if you were a rugby player and you wanted to find out CrossFit about rugby, you would go in there and go to the forum and search the word rugby, and you'd see everybody who's doing it for that sport. Or I wanted to find it too, because a longtime CrossFitter, and he actually was a part owner of CrossFit Costa Mesa, this guy, Chris Warden, who also was a photographer at the games a couple of years. I didn't know him at the time, but he knew motocross. I was doing motocross, and I said, oh, this will be perfect for motocross. And somewhere in that forum, way back when, I actually posted, is anybody else out there doing CrossFit for motocross? And Chris Warden ended up writing back to me, and then we became long friends after that. We still are today, so it's kind of cool.
That's funny. See, I mean, this is like stuff that almost doesn't exist in that way anymore. Like, especially in the CrossFit space, people meet through other means and that, but not the way that it was back in the day.
Well, you think about it, we didn't really have an Instagram or anything like that. So,
yeah,
if you wanted to post your times, or, find somebody in your area doing CrossFit, or if you're a new affiliate owner and just had a question on how to run your business, it was the one-stop shopping for all that. And now there's almost too much, on there. That was the one. It was much more of a family feel with the old forum. It was really a fun thing. Yeah.
So with your, you've met Greg, you've met Dave, and then you got into the CrossFit world. Did they bring you in, or with Concept2 or anything, for some of those early CrossFit games?
Yeah. So, matter of fact, I think it was the first year or second year in Aromas, we actually, Concept2 bought all the water for the athletes and the spectators, which we joke about because it was like one really tall pallet of bottled water, and we had it specially labeled that said Aromas Games. I think about it's 2008 that we did that. And now we go to the games, and I talk to my coworkers, and I'm like, you think we could buy water for everybody here? Because it was, at the time, that was they're really appreciative. I mean, it wasn't all that much money in the scheme of things, but it's what they needed. And we wanted to play with these guys because they were just so fun. I mean, back then, like I said, it was very much a family feel, and it was a party. The first games, it was crazy. You would see guys like having a beer between events. Like they'd get off, have a beer, and go back for their next events. It was truly. I know we say the games now is a festival, but back then it felt more like a festival.
Yeah,
a smaller group.
That feels more like a slow pitch tournament on a Sunday than it does like going to watch like the Blue Jays or somebody like that play.
It was, but I mean, our minds were blown by guys doing like 135-pound overhead. It's like the numbers that now that you'd be like, okay, that high school female track runner is doing. It's crazy.
Yeah, it speaks to the growth of the sport and the development of the sport. But speaking of growth and development, like Concept2, what was that growth like when CrossFit kind of came into the space and when it kind of really boomed through the 2010, 12, in that range? What did that do for Concept2?
Well, like personally, it made my job a hell of a lot more fun. That was the big thing. I mean, I really lucked out in the fact that, I was doing and talking and working with people that were either like-minded or I'd met on the road and were just super cool. And, like we were mentioning before, I think when we came into it, there might've been right around 100 affiliates, maybe in there, that when we really started going. And so when they would call to buy rowers, or they would call to buy parts, you would remember the affiliate owner's name, like, hey, what's going on? Or you would have saw the games or something like that. And then quickly it just started, that whole curve just went really steep. And I would think that our trajectory, would have mimicked what CrossFit's was. As the affiliates started opening up, they needed equipment. But it was slow at first because the original affiliates, weren't buying a lot of equipment. They're either trying to buy it used or, the original affiliates, a lot of them were still warehouses with, if you had a bathroom, it was like, great. That's all. You had a portalet outside, and, their signage was basically big tires outside, back when we still flip tires in CrossFit, stuff like that. Yeah, so it definitely helped our business, but like I said, it also made our business more fun, because before that, it was a lot of on-water rowing. I mean, that's our background. We were owned by Olympic rowers. We would go to regattas, and no offense to on-water rowers, they're a little more, they're not as I guess party oriented, or it just wasn't a fit for me, because I never rowed in college. So it's great for other people. That's why when we say we have a marketing team, we have people that rowed in college or rowed at a very high level, and that's kind of their focus. So then everyone kind of picks their little area. So
with the rowing and where you guys got started, it wasn't the boats that you guys got started with, correct? It was oars.
Yeah, so we never did boats, which is good, because there's lots of boat companies. We're the world leader in oars by a lot. Like last Olympics, I think it was like almost low 80% of all the oars in the Olympics were made here in Morrisville, Vermont.
Oh, wow.
So, and we've been doing oars since 1976, and we've been doing rowing machines since 1982. So it's, it started with oars. The two brothers that own Concept2, I believe it was the first composite oar, but they were still using wood, I think, for a lot of the stuff. So they changed the game, and then the two brothers are incredibly smart that own the company, and they did some blade design changes when the blades stopped looking like what you would think of a rowboat oar and started looking what they call hatchets or hatchet blade oars. The performance in rowing went through the roof, and that's when they really started taking off. But then, like anything else, we're in Vermont. It's cold. You can't train in the winter. So they're like, we're going to make a machine that will replicate the training we need for the water. And then that's when the Model A came out, the one that had has a bicycle wheel in the front. They're still out there.
It almost looks like a wagon wheel or something, right?
Yeah. Well, it literally was a bicycle wheel with a weight that was welded, and we did all the welding here onto the rim, and plastic cards for the fan. But I think every machine we ever made is still in use. We actually sell a PM5, which is our modern monitor. Kit that will go on these old Model A's from 82, and we sell a bunch of them. So people are still using those old machines.
So I have a friend who's a metal guy, and he refurbished a Model A. And I was trying to find the picture of it before we started so I could show you, but couldn't find it. But yeah, he has a Model A, and I've seen it. I've never used it, but like you see a current rower Model D, and you're like, okay, it's very streamlined. It looks clean. Everything's covered. Everything's protected. This thing has a wheel that if you get in the way of, like, you're going to lose a limb. Like,
it's funny, and I don't want to give anybody ideas or anything like that, but I am always, even when I came on, that we were already into the Model Bs when I came on. I'm like, how did somebody not lose a finger in that thing when they're doing it?
Yeah.
But, it's we've got some great old pictures, because we started in a barn, literally when the brothers owned a barn, and cows downstairs, and they just build stuff up there. And like I said, we were welding our own rings on the things. It's like, it's really old school stuff, but it changed the game. The first world championships for indoor rowing, I believe, were like in the 80s. So it went from the first real rowing machine, other than those piston rowers, to world championships, to where we are now. And you think about it, wasn't really all that long.
No. And where you are now, like, just to use CrossFit as a reference point, there was 80 people simultaneously rowing a marathon row at the CrossFit Games in 2018.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was that the first time a marathon row had been done?
No, marathons have always been a thing individually. Like, we do a lot of online challenges, and, those of us here at work, we'll do a couple marathons a year. We have a marathon records for 90-year-olds, so that's why it was so funny that we had these elite athletes that were crying after a marathon. And we have 90-year-olds do it. The difference is that some did, the CrossFitters were doing it in 2 hours and 50 minutes, and, the 90-year-olds are doing 5 hours. So the intensity isn't there, but the ability to sit and go back and forth is just how tough is your butt, and stuff on there. But that was the first time we ever did a marathon as a group, cabled with racing equipment, and that's where the stress came in. That's where I was very nervous, because we did the half marathon first and then the marathon.
Yeah.
So.
When they did the half marathon, so the half marathon was probably 2014, 15, 14, so 13, 14, somewhere in that range.
I thought it was earlier, but yeah, I can't remember. It's all
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was 12.
Yeah.
So you guys did 2,000 meters as a scoring point, or the games did. Excuse me. Did 2,000 meters as a scoring point right into your half marathon time,
which was even crazier. So to give you a little bit background is, so like the way it works is, we basically tell CrossFit, we're here for you. Let us know how we can help and let us know. And
what's up, guys? Justin here. I'm really sorry to interrupt the show, but we're here to talk about something special. This is to talk about Bionic. Bionic is a first of its kind AI-based motion tracking mobility test that's designed to show you what your body is really doing. We've designed 7 unique tests that show you your range of motion for different joints throughout your entire body and how they work together. Once you're done the test, you'll be given a body map score, which breaks down your entire body and their different range of motion. From there, the WODProof app will also design a mobility program specifically tailored to your needs and the things you want to improve. I can't wait for you guys to try out the test. Go download the WODProof app today, start your free 7-day trial, and try Bionic today. All right, guys, back to the show.
So they do their programming, and then if it's anything to do with us, then they hit us up just on ours. Like, I never know the other events or anything like that. But if there's anything where they needed to cable with our rowers, where they need our software and all that other stuff, then they tell me. And they asked first if a half marathon was possible, and I said yes. And then they said, can we do this 2 races in one thing? And I said yes to Dave, but before I checked with our IT guys, and
oh no,
I went back and I said, hey, this is what we're going to do. And they're like, we can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? I already told them we could do that. And so then they ended up like rewriting the software, and so they could get a timestamp at exactly 2K. I mean, we spent a lot of money trying to make it work, but then we realized that, other people are going to want to do this too. So it wasn't like we wasted it on one event. That's something that we can use and we've used in the past. But yeah, it was a 2K. And then I remember too, Jason Kalipa, won that for the men. And
yeah,
if you ask me, when he won the 2K, I told everybody he's done. I go, he just wanted to get those points and he's going to cruise it in. And he just made me look like an idiot because I talked to him after. I think he did the 2K in like, what did he get? It was like low 6s or high 5s or something crazy like that. And then he gave himself 100 strokes to rest. And then he went back to his average pace that he knew he could hold. And he just sat there on that average pace. And it just, I mean, I love Jason, but I never thought that he could do that. Like, I was like, oh, he's done. The whole time I was just like, he's done. He's going to, and he did amazing. So
that's crazy. I knew that year was that, like, he's a good rower and he's good on the machines, but I think that was that Hinshaw year where he'd been working with Chris, and
you're right. I think it was. Yeah.
It kind of turned over for him. I mean, those splits are super impressive, and I don't think that too many people are going to try to replicate that.
What's great about it too, it's helped us, we love the sport of rowing, is that if you look at old rowing technique from Aromas, basically they're using the rowing machine like a repetitive deadlift, and their technique was really weird. And people had this idea that, if I really lay back really far and do all this stuff, then it's going to be like I'm taller, and taller people do better at rowing, and this weird stuff going on. Once they started doing the distance rowing, CrossFitters were forced to learn technique, or at least start to focus it on there. And then that kind of changed the game. Now you go to an elite level CrossFit event, and everyone's rowing is pretty dialed in, and it goes, I always said too, it's like, there's a lot of sloppy rowing in affiliates. It gets a little bit better back when we had regionals. Their regional athletes look a little bit better. And by the time they get to the top, they've got it figured out. They either found someone to teach them, or they watch a lot of video or something like that, and it gets cleaned up a lot. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, people are spending so many hours on the ergs right now, just trying to get better. Oops, sorry, just muted myself.
Yeah.
How did the ski erg become the next kind of evolution of the rower?
Well, it's funny. So the owners of Concept2 obviously were Olympic rowers, but their kids were Olympic biathletes, ski and shoot biathletes.
That
And
makes sense.
yeah, so, and then a lot of us being in Vermont, we're all skiers. Like I coached Nordic ski racing, and, a lot of my other coworkers here coached other schools and stuff. So we were basically selfishly made the skier for ourselves. And so we had it so we could train, and then basically made it its own product for skiers in mind, just like we did with the rower. We made the rower initially for on-water rowers, and then the world found it. We made the skier for skiers, and then the world found it. As far as I know, I never asked Dave of this, but I never thought Dave liked the skier. I didn't think the skier would ever make it into the games, just because I just didn't think that, the old saying way back when in CrossFit is that we make machines, we don't use them.
Yeah.
And yet they use the rowing machine. So it was almost like it kind of looked bad if they started adding more machines. But I don't know if the assault bike was in before the skier or about the same time, but that kind of opened the window. But as far as a modality goes, I think the skier is great for CrossFit because of the fact that it's a hip closing, and we do so much hip opening movement that other than say a toes to bar or a ball slam or an ab mat sit up that you're not going to do for 20 minutes, an hour, marathon or something like that. You can do that on the skier. It's personally my favorite of the three machines we make on there.
Yeah.
How it made it in there, I don't even remember like the year that it first came in. I'm thinking 2015, but that might be just bad memory. Not sure. Oh, here's what's, remember way back when, and I don't know if it was called sectionals then or not, Albany, New York had their whatever, sectional, regional, whatever they're calling it at the time. And we had the Skier 1, which is this gray machine. It was our first attempt at a Skier. And they were the first people to put it in a CrossFit event.
Yeah. So it would have been sectionals because they all programmed their own events back then.
Yep. So Jason Ackerman put it in. He probably should get credit for putting the Skier in the first ever CrossFit event.
So, I feel like, I love the skier, and I ended up using the skier quite a bit when I had a knee issue. And it is a very different stimulus. Like for people who haven't spent a lot of time on it, it is different. Obviously when you see the metrics, we still get 500-meter splits and all that. But just being able to hold them and being able to maintain them is such a different feeling on the rower versus the skier.
Oh yeah, people always want to compare the three machines, but it's very different. The wave of contraction of the muscles is different, and really the only thing is that I guess that they all can be used for endurance, or they could be used for intensity. But the monitors are all the same. But other than that, they're very different in what they do. The skier now, though it's crazy the amount of different sports that picked it up. Everything from, there was just Ronaldo, the soccer player, was just posted on Instagram on the skier. We got F1 drivers using the skier. All the pro motocross guys seem to be into it. And then, like you said, the real forte of it, I think that it's amazing, is the adaptive athletes. It's like, I don't care, between our three machines, I don't care what your a disability or limb loss or anything like that you have, there's a machine that will work for you. Any seated athlete, the skier is amazing for. So anybody in a wheelchair, recovering from an injury. Yeah.
And it feels more natural too than, adjusting a rower or, obviously depending on extremities in that, using the bike might be limited, but I don't know. I've always been a big fan of skier, and I feel like it's one of those things I need to use more of, even though like I use it a lot when I was rehabbing, and now I'm like, why don't I use that for this? Like I'm thinking about the workouts I'm doing today. I'm like, why did I write a row instead of erg? Or a ski erg would have been better.
People should try for a while, even if they just say like take a month or two and just make that the erg of choice, and they're going to see some. First of all, they're going to learn it better. They're going to learn to pace it better, because a lot of people here just don't know how to pace it based on the distance that they need to for the WOD, whereas the rower, they can maybe a little bit easier, and the bike's always a little bit easier as far as pacing they can do. You don't have to worry about how quickly your quads are blowing up. But the other thing that's nice about the skier is you can nitpick rowing technique all day long. There's always something to fix.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at the ski erg and you're just trying to beat the machine, it's not as nitpicky. There is definitely a technique to it where you can get better splits with less output just by, either quickening your tempo or not going down so low with your hands and stuff like that. But it's not like rowing where there's an infinite number of things to fix,
Yeah. With the bike erg, I don't know if you've ever had people say this to you or not, but I find that I sweat if I'm going at a decent pace on a bike erg, I sweat significantly more than on the rower or the ski.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but I mean, all of our machines, people tend to like to DM me sweat puddle pictures. So in my Instagram, it's almost like I could have a competition of how big the sweat puddles are on all their equipment. But yeah, the bike specifically, because your upper body's not moving, so you're not air cooling your skin. I think that just because you're over the bike like that, it just drips on that bike.
Yeah.
We actually had one guy that said that he was filling his seat tube with sweat every time, and he's wondering if there's some way to make like a gator around it. And we're like, dude, how much are you sweating? That's crazy.
How is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, we have guys that do 24-hour events, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's always those people. Like, even before we started talking, I got a DM about, I want to do an Ironman on all three of your pieces of equipment. What's the equivalent distance for Ironman triathlon lengths? And I'm like, I don't know. I go, I've never really figured it out, So, but yeah,
How would
there's
you
always
do that?
somebody that wants to take it to the extreme with our equipment.
Yeah. That's kind of a cool thing to potentially document, but I wonder how you'd sub the swim for the ski, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we have what's called ergathlon, and so, like acid bath, made that famous in Dubai. I mean, that's an ergathlon, but that we would consider that like an ultra sprint or a sprint triathlon, on there. I mean, that's still one of the most gnarly, I think, WODs out there. I mean, if you go hard on acid bath, there's nothing to replicate that leg burn. So
No.
yeah.
Do you find that stuff like that when they come out, are they good selling points for the equipment?
Yeah, so it's funny. Before, we used to be way back when, and you're too young to know, and a lot of these guys. So before CrossFit, every gym had a Model B rower, but it was always pushed to the back of the room, and it was always some gray-haired person, watching Oprah while they row. As soon as we made someone throw up, people loved us. They're like, "Oh my God, I rowed so hard I threw up." Next thing you know, everybody wants a rower. So we were kind of marketing it wrong. It's people never knew the amount of intensity you could get out of our equipment, other than on water rowers that, of course, knew it. I mean, when we first started, the 2K is the standard. Like, say you want to make a college crew program, they're going to ask you what your 2K is. So everyone trains for 2K, which that time domain is just brutal. It's a little bit long for an all-out sprint, a little bit short for endurance on there. And even now, like, we did so many of them when I was first started working here, that if someone told me I had to do I'd rather do a 10K than a 2K, basically is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Just because it's just so painful.
The 2K is kind of a nightmare for me. I'm not a tall guy, if you can't tell. The 2K is a nightmare.
Yeah.
I remember training for so long and so many hours on the rower to get my 2K time down by like 15 seconds. And I was like,
oh, that's the other thing too. So I take a lot of the training questions here, and people don't realize, they're like, how can I, shave? Oh, I have a race in a month or two, and how can I get this for my overall time for a 2K? And I got to be like, you're not, unless your technique is so bad that we can clean it by technique. It could take a second is a long time.
Yeah.
To take 15 seconds off is like, listen, you better make that your primary training tool until your competition.
Yeah. You know what? I will say, I just looked it up when you said the Model B thing.
Yep.
So my dad, probably in the late 90s, bought a Model C. So I had a Model C with the wood handle in my basement all throughout high school, probably into when I was in university. I think he sold it. But now he's got a Model D. and he's retired. And the other day he's like, hey, so I'm rowing every day now. He's like, I add like 500 meters every day, and I just kind of get on there. So the last time I talked to him, he was up to like, he would do like 4 or 5K and then lift some weights and then just kind of row for a little bit and watch TV.
I mean, it's so my parents, the same thing. It's, my dad will put on the news in the morning, and just row for the length of a newscast. But I mean, for somebody who's not training for something specific, just that 20 minutes of total body exercise, if they can do it and feel good about it, then I mean, that's amazing. I mean, we have a lot of those people that's why they bought the equipment, is they're just going to go while they watch TV. And, although we do, like I said, we have the racing age groups. We're probably the only sport that has a 95 plus age group. We get scores all the time from people who are 95 plus in all the different distances on all three machines, So wow. Yeah, it's well, mainly because our machines are very low impact. So if you could have no ACL, you could have, bad shoulders, you can have all this stuff. And, depending on your intensity, you can do our equipment forever. So.
Okay. But 95 plus is super impressive.
Yeah. There was I think we even had 100-year-old guy at Crash Bees one year. It was 3 generations all raced at Crash Bees. Someone would have to fact check that. It was close to 100. When the guy walked up to his erg, I was like, I don't know, but he did it.
That's crazy. I was about to ask about some of the more memorable experiences, and I'm guessing that has to be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many. I've been lucky. I think most of my memorable experiences have probably come around, people I've met by doing this. Just like, people I wouldn't normally, like with the MMA stuff, like meeting people that you just really look up to, or and with the motocross stuff, going to races and just people you see on TV, just chatting with them. I mean, I've been really lucky. I've gotten to travel around and talk to some amazing people over the years. Like even hanging out with Greg back in the day. Like, to say now that I got to spend, I think I spent 2 full weeks at Camp Lejeune when the Marine Corps was trying to adopt CrossFit, and just hanging out with Greg. I mean, it was so, at the time, it was just some guy, really nice guy. I liked hanging out with him. It was fun to hang out with him. But then CrossFit got huge, and I'd only see Greg at the games, that kind of thing. So yeah, I feel pretty lucky.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be an experience right there. Like, you see Greg do like a seminar online, some of the old CrossFit videos on YouTube, and that 10 minutes Greg talking. Now multiply that out for like days at a time, or full seminar. Like, that would be, say what you want about the guy. I know some people have mixed opinions and whatnot, but he really revolutionized the way that we look at training and sport.
I would say, I've been in the fitness industry my whole life, basically since college. And I would say that Greg was the most influential person in fitness in the past 30 years. One of those changed it the most, changed the philosophy. Even when he was getting completely, all the other existing trainers were telling him, it's crazy and everyone's going to get hurt and all this stuff. And he just stood his ground and said, we're not, and here's the facts and all that stuff. So again, like you said, don't judge him, on some of the stories that people hear. If you just judged him on, was he an influencer and a changer of the sport? Well, not even the sport, just fitness as a whole, making people's lives better. I mean, look at how many people he got fit. I mean, it changed what I was doing for training, and I've never looked back, so.
Like, the impact he's had on my entire life without ever meeting him is crazy.
Yeah. And then you look at, I love it when we see like the games, like, it'll be some small affiliate could be in Peru or some crazy small country, and they've never met him either. And they might not even know his name, but that's why I really, like, even in my affiliate, we have a lot of members, and there's a lot of young guys. And I mean, they don't even go back to Matt Chan and some of these, Chris Spieler and some of these, they don't even know who they are. And I hate to say it, I bet you if I said Greg Glassman, and maybe a third wouldn't even know who he was. And these are people who go to CrossFit, 3 times a week.
And that's probably mostly because of stuff that happened through the pandemic.
Yeah. We got a lot of people from, the traditional global gyms that ended up switching over to CrossFit afterwards.
Yeah. Did the pandemic have an impact on Concept2 in any way? Like,
Oh,
were you guys?
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, both good and bad. I mean,
yeah.
it was good in the fact that people were getting stuff for home, but
Hmm.
at the same time, we couldn't get parts. So we had like an 8-week backlog, and we had a lot of panic buying folks that were not easy to work with. They weren't fitness people. We were the toilet paper of fitness industry. Like, oh, we
Yeah.
need it. They don't even know if they're going to use it, but they need to have it. And they need to have it right now. And you tell them that it was going to be 8 weeks, and they would basically call you a liar and said, "No, you've got a stash somewhere." So we're like, "We don't." And getting parts that we need, was tough. And for me, I went from doing marketing and traveling around and seeing all these great people and doing all this event to basically working from my kitchen table, doing more customer service type stuff. And so it sucked for me. It was great as far as the sales that came out of it, but I don't want to do it again. I know that.
Yeah. Have things since then, have your roles changed back to kind of what they were before within the company, or are you doing different things now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed, but it's going back. Just recently, we're starting to get more requests for equipment for competition, so we know it's getting better. The fact that the games will happen again in Madison is cool. There's stuff to look forward to. We went to the Rogue Invitational, during the pandemic. That was great for me because it just felt like, okay, we're back now.
Yeah.
That's an amazing event. I mean, to me, Rogue Invitational is at the same level as the games. I mean, I have just as much fun. It's a very well-run event. It's great.
Yeah, the Rogue event this year was really well done, and it was unique being out in the middle of that baseball diamond the way it was.
It was. I mean, it was a little stressful because there wasn't a lot of like if weather had turned bad, like when this is all stuff you think about when you have equipment, not kettlebells. Is you're
Yeah.
like, okay, where's it being stored? Will it get wet? How do we move it? Stuff like that. But it worked out really well, and who doesn't want to go to Austin? It's a cool town.
Yeah. And has there been any, like, I don't know, butting of heads or anything like that with Rogue or any of the other companies since you guys introduced the bike erg? Because you guys were kind of in your own lane for a long time there.
Yeah, we still kind of are too. We're good friends and have a ton of respect for Bill and Katie at Rogue, and so they actually knew before anybody that we were going to do it. We went to them saying, "Hey, we've been asked for years to make." Well, initially, everybody wanted us to make a bike with arms, like for years, even
Like
before Assault. Yeah, so
yeah.
like people wanted a Schwinn Aerodyne, and they wanted Concept2 to make it using our technology. And we were never into it because at the time we say we're going to stay in our lane. We know rowing, we know skiing. Yes, we all mountain bike. We're all avid mountain bikers here, but we
Hmm.
didn't feel we needed it because we go outside and ride. We can.
Yeah.
So rather than put arms on it and basically step on toes, and Assault had come out by that point, where they're already selling their bikes and stuff. We're like, we're not going to put arms on it, and everyone thought that was a really bad idea. The other thing that the owners I thought was cool is that so we make products that replicate sport, and until you go to the Olympics and you see a bike with arms on it, then it's
Yeah.
not ideal.
Yeah.
There's no Olympic air biking with arms, so it's not really our deal. But then we were lucky. We brought the bike out when it was done to Columbus, Ohio, to show Bill and Katie, and we're like, "Hey, we want to show you." And then they're like, "Okay, we want to show you something," and we were like, "Oh no, they made a bike too." Which they had, but it was the Echo bike. So we're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
thank God, it's not the same. It's not in
Yeah.
our deal." So
You couldn't think of like two different bikes that felt entirely different. Like
oh no, yeah,
the
it's
similarities, they have pedals. Like
yeah, it's even yeah, definitely it's yeah, the Echo bike, which it's got to be the last thing left for me to jump on in a WOD. Like if I go in there and like, oh shit, all of Concept2 stuff is taken, I guess I'll take the Echo bike. Not that it's a
yeah.
bad product, I just know that I'm going to be whipped after.
Yeah.
This.
Oh, I dislike that bike so much. And
Yeah.
actually, funny that you say that because one of my clients texted me this morning and was like, "Oh, by the way, I didn't use the Echo bike today. I used the Assault bike." And I was like, "Wait, do you have an Echo bike?" She's like, "Yeah, I just didn't want to use it."
Yeah, the arms are so much beefier on the Echo bike that I really, and I've never been good on a bike with arms. I don't know what it is. I just feel like I'm not getting the most out of it. But I also don't practice it, so I can't complain. So
even from the Salt bike to the Echo bike, it's like not even close to feeling the same.
no, and then I have friends that are trainers that have the Schwinn belt drive ones, and even those feel different. I mean, there's a lot of, and even the monitor stuff, it's like, it's tough to say, oh, if you do this on this, you do this on this. Whereas at least with the PM5s that all of our equipment have, it's a little bit easier to say, okay, if I do this on the rower, this is what it'll look like on the skier. I'll double it. That'll be what it is on the bike, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Was that's the other thing is, how did that decision come about to set up the PM5s like that, to set up the monitors so they're all very congruent and connected in that way?
Well, so that's the thing. So our equipment, because of the fact that we'll start it out with the rower, the accuracy on our equipment is not like any other piece of exercise equipment. I mean, ours is legitimately accurate, which I think it'd be really hard to prove that any other pieces of equipment are that accurate. And that came down to the founders of Concept2, who realized that there are people making or not making major teams based on their 2K time, and it's got to be repeatable, just like Glassman always said. It's got to be, no matter where you are in the world, it's got to be the same. And that's why, our patent or our technology is on that. That's the part that, we've got under lock and key. And so once we had that with the rower, it only made sense to bring that to the other pieces of equipment. I mean, they're all fan based, they're all drag based. The calculations are all based on the deceleration of the flywheel. So it's really the accuracy is how it goes. The look of the PM5 was, people don't want to learn new stuff. So if they already know the rower, you don't want to learn new button pushing, it only made sense to do it. And I think, people really like that. They know they can get on any piece of our equipment and they're going to know how to use it. It's pretty basic. But our monitors aren't just your typical one. They're basically little computers. I mean, there's a lot going on that people don't realize in there to make them so accurate. So.
We can't end this without talking about the fish game.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a big fish game person, but who is going to be the first competition to put the fish game in as a workout?
So we have people, and I'm all for it, that in our world records on our website, we've got world records for 500 meters, 1,000 meters, marathons, all these different records. We don't have a world record on the fish game yet. And I think needs to change.
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to CrossFit Oahu, one of the original affiliates. If I remember this right, they used to do what's called the Friday night fish fry. And on Friday nights, their whole affiliate would get together and basically do a fish game fishing tournament. And I think they even made a t-shirt about it, if I remember right, on there. So there's a lot of people doing the fish game. It's super popular. I'm thinking that someone needs to make an app that will link with our monitor that literally will allow you to play the fish game against other people around the world. Something like that, like a fishing derby would be amazing.
Oh, that'd be fun. I like the fish game. I always try to get people to use the fish game to warm up.
Yeah.
Because then they they play for 4 minutes and they're like just rowing for 4 minutes straight. And they don't even know that they just did 1,000 meters, 1,200 meters, whatever it is.
That's actually exactly right. So we have parents come to us all the time. They're like, my kid hates to exercise, but he'll do 4 fish games back to back. So I'm like, and not even know that they're doing it. So, if you have to trick a kid into exercise, whatever, but it works, it's doing it on there. There's the other real popular game, and I'm pretty sure Rich Froning came up with it, was that rolling. Do you remember rolling? Yeah. So that could easily be, app based. Like I say, Katie Henniger, we did rolling at the games, all the Rogue employees and myself, and Katie Henniger can make it get 100 every time, meters every time. Like, she is like freakishly accurate when in rolling. She would probably win a world championship on that.
So for people who don't know what rolling is Rich came up with this game on the Concept2, on the rower, that's you have to try and hit exactly 100 meters. So every meter plus or minus is a burpee penalty. So if it's, you get 99, okay, you hop off, you do 1 burpee penalty. Greg gets on, hits
like bowling, you want to have low score wins, But yeah, I mean, it's and then so the other thing is the damper lever. You know, it's a lot harder if the damper is down really low because the flywheel spins more freely because it's less air going in. So if everyone is at a high, it's a little bit easier to get it to kind of stop at a certain distance. If you draw it down low, then it kind of want to click over a little bit more on there. So
I didn't know
that
that.
game's been real popular over the years.
Nice. Actually, that is something I did with a client of mine. It was a, I don't know, 13-year-old boy. He didn't want to do anything. And I was like, hey, try this game. And like you said, he played, I think, 3 times back to back to back.
Yeah.
He just,
There's a game on there called the Dart Game. You should get him to try that. And what it does is it's meant to replicate a good stroke. Unfortunately, it'll replicate bad strokes too. But so there's a dartboard and you get a couple of strokes so it establishes an average and your arrow goes onto the target. You wanted to hit the center of the target. And then every stroke after that, as far as pace or acceleration, power output, all that stuff makes the arrow fly exactly the same. If you're not a consistent rower, those arrows go all over the place. Like you might hit the bullseye once and then the other one will go off and you get a score on that too. I think the dart game is a fun one to try too. It's frustrating, but it's fun. Yeah.
I'll play with that.
Yeah.
Okay. For kind of the next steps for you guys, do you guys have some more things coming down the pipeline, or are there big events coming up for you guys that you guys can talk about right now?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what events we'll be in, but we know we'll be in some, most likely for the semifinals. Again, we never really know until like the last minute, but I would assume that we would be. I mean, we're hoping that we'll be in the games again. I mean, we've been in every one so far, so I mean, it would suck if we weren't, but I would think we'll be doing that. So those would be the big ones. On water events are going again. Colleges are back. Our backlog now is in oars. Right now we can't, because with the colleges were shut down, nobody was buying new equipment, and now they're all back. And so now, like right outside the door here, we're making oars, and the shop is just like the guys are basically getting crushed by orders with oars right now, trying to get them out the door because even up north here, the lakes and the rivers are starting to, ice is coming off of them now. So people all want their equipment. So that's it.
For the oars, are they all custom made, or is it
all custom? If you call up to buy an oar, it's a roll of carbon fiber, and it goes from there to exactly your specs on there, and right down to the blade shape, grip type, all that stuff, and then we send it out as a finished product at the other end. So,
jeez.
Yeah.
When you guys do custom oars, especially for like the highest level, are they making really minor changes to like little things, or do they take them pretty stock and just adjust like the way they like them?
Well, so they rig them based on the athlete. So they're length adjustable, within a certain amount, 5 centimeters here or there. The blade shapes really come down to the athlete and the coach and what the feel is that they want in the boat. But I mean, they're all, if you went to the Olympics, they'd all, to a non-rower, would look pretty similar. We sell different flexes, soft, medium, hard flex, how much, think of like a fishing pole whip or bend you want in the oar. But when they place an order, they say, the blade type, the flex, the length, all this different stuff, the grip type. And then we have this little sheet and basically just run through the sheet and just build it to their spec. But we have weird stuff. Like in Canada, they have like ice boat racing. And, we actually just made a set there's some CrossFitters that are going to row across the Atlantic. Brian Contosh is going to be rowing in a 4-man group across the Atlantic. It's the Tasker Whiskey Challenge, if anyone wants to look it up. And then Chris Smith, who owned CrossFit Trident, he's another person in the boat. They're all veterans. And so we made them an extra special custom pair of oars that they can use to row across the Atlantic. So,
jeez, is that
nothing?
Say that competition name again.
I think it's the Tasker Whiskey Challenge in there.
Okay.
So if they Googled that, they'd be able to find it. And I think the name of their team is Shut Up and Row, so they can find them.
Fair. Okay. And then what about for indoor erg events this year. Do you guys have the World Championships, or is it the Crash Bees?
So there's a Crash Bees. That used to be the World Championships. The Crash Bees still happens, but it was always in Boston, and we wanted to take it more global. So, since the actual World Championships, they've been in France once, they've been in Canada. We're trying to make it so that we can make that go around the world. But of course, it's been on pause with COVID. So I'm not sure right off the bat. I'm assuming this year that it'll be somewheres, but I'm not sure where. That the big regatta events like that, I really haven't been doing much with, because my big events are going to be games and Rogue Invitational and stuff like that. So
awesome. Well, Greg, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time. If anybody wants to check you out, it's Concept2 Greg on Instagram.
Yep, Concept2 Greg, and then there's Concept2 Inc., which is also the main account. Mine tends to be more CrossFit, action sport focused, and adaptive. I actually try to promote a lot of the CrossFit adaptive athletes just because they impress the hell out of me. I figured the more eyes on them, the better. Yeah. So, but yeah, and if any questions too, they can email, call Concept2. We're super easy to reach.
Awesome. Greg, thanks so much for joining us again. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it.
Have a great week, guys.
Have a good one.